I'm founding partner of Climatic Group. Welcome to the Climatic Scale podcast, where we talk about scaling technologies in the climate, energy, mobility, and built environment sectors. Today, I am really excited to have as our guest Jaydeep Naha, who is General Manager at Siemens Energy. And we're going to talk about what it takes to scale energy technologies with a large corporate like Siemens. So welcome, Jaydeep.
Hi, Nuri. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on this podcast together with you. I'm sure we'll have an interesting conversation. What I see from the climatic group already excites me. In the energy sector, this is something which we really need, and we work in ecosystems, so I'm pretty sure we will somehow be able to kind of collaborate together as well.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm excited as well. So, JD, tell me about your story. Why do you personally care about energy and decarbonizing it? And what brought you to Siemens Energy in the first place?
Well, I am really passionate about the energy sector itself. I was lucky to be at the right place at the right time. So that's how I'm at Siemens Energy. I've been here for a long time in different countries, 4 different continents. To really answer your question as to why this is exciting for me is because it's also our personal stakes when we talk about decarbonizing the energy sector. When we talk about purpose-driven leadership, tackling the climate crisis or the legacy of the impact that we can leave behind is very important. For me, being able to handle that as a catalyst through the digital businesses that we do, that's a huge opportunity. It's extremely challenging, but at the same time, I wouldn't do anything else because it's very interesting and you could unlock efficiencies, you could enable transparencies, you could accelerate innovation all at the same time. So I think I'm at the right place at the right time, especially in today's world with digital technologies that we're able to handle.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're definitely in a good place right now to be working on this. So, you just talked about digital, and that's what you're focused on, digital projects and innovation in the energy sector. What kinds of technologies is your team investigating currently? What problems are you aiming to solve?
Well, it's a rainbow, I would say. It's like a whole gamut. We're talking about all the buzzwords that you could think about, but really in a much more meaningful way. When we talk about the metaverse, we're really talking about how can we use the metaverse in the industrial metaverse format to our factory settings, our automations, so that we could really simulate things to bring in more efficiencies into our businesses. When we talk about AI, we are really trying to create AI agents, for example, for our service businesses to make sure that it's not that we want to reduce people, it's just that we don't have enough experts anymore to take care of those projects. And this is what we're really trying to do there. If you look at topics like robotics, we're really leading that, trying to do things in a more efficient way, which is not only scalable, but also something which already helps us in our daily operations. So we have a huge fleet of plants, not only power plants, but also transmission grids, substations, oil and gas topsides. And all of these technologies help us to make these businesses much more robust, not only just increase revenues for us, but really improving the efficiencies of these businesses and how it's done.
And these problems you're referring to with the AI agents and things, do you also build those internally, like through venture building, or are you specifically looking outside for maybe startup solutions that offer this?
Yeah, that's a good question. At Siemens Energy, our journey started where we wanted to build everything on our own. That's how we actually started, not only with these technologies, but we are a very heavy engineering loaded company, and we are pretty good at it. But we soon realized that we can't tackle these problems alone, not only because of the pace that is needed, but also because of the R&D that we can leverage with the ecosystem that is around us. So within the venture clienting space, we basically started to work with startups since the last 4, almost 5 years. We are trying to see which problems of our businesses can be solved by which solutions or technologies out there together with the startups. That is what we are trying to do right now, to integrate startup solutions into our problems. And then we try to scale that together with that ecosystem. To answer your question, not everything is completely done by us, and not everything is completely handed over to the startup. It's a hybrid, but we're really trying to form that ecosystem and find the sweet spot.
Yeah, it's great to hear that Siemens is also very actively partnering with startups because I've actually heard that a lot from the corporate sector, especially in Germany, that we can actually just do it ourselves. We don't actually need startups. And that always surprises me because it feels like one, that's very expensive to like have to investigate new technologies that you're not experts at internally. And then also, this is an economy improving initiative to support the ecosystem. So yeah, it's good to hear that you guys are doing both. Speaking of supporting startups, the Climatic Scale podcast is focused on storytelling successful scaling collaborations between corporates and startups. So, since you're very focused on scaling adoptions at Siemens Energy, which makes you the perfect person to ask this question, what examples of successful startup corporate pilots can you share?
That's a good question. Naturally, what we're doing is we're really working with a lot of startups. We have now successfully piloted more than 120 pilots, and this is global. It's not just Europe, but also significantly in the rest of the world. But we've also quickly learned that doing a pilot is good for building the venture corporate clienting muscles across the company. But the real impact comes from scaling or what we call adoption. What we really tried to focus on in recent years is to see out of those success stories, which one can we really scale and do more pilots with, go deeper, and how can we diversify that. So we do have a lot of success stories there as well. We do have it in the space of manufacturing, digital, of course. But the first thought that comes to my mind is one of the startups that we are working with, a Swiss-based startup called ANYbotics. It's a robotics company. When we started, there was a debate inside, do we build robots on our own and address the challenges that we have? Or do we really focus on the challenges with the software suite around it and let's take the robot from a startup? So 3 years down the line, we know better. So we've really formed this nice ecosystem with ANYbotics. What we are doing with them is we started off in one plant, actually in Berlin, to deman the plant from the operations colleagues. It all started with the journey that they wanted somebody to take care of the plant from Friday evening till Monday morning when nobody wants to work. But these are critical infrastructures, so somebody has to be around. And the whole idea was, can we put a robot in? But as you know, a robot on its own cannot do anything. It doesn't know where to go, what to do. So we needed to build a suite around that, which is what we did. It's called the digital brain. And then we connected it to this startup ecosystem where we picked a robot. And the good thing about this startup is, together with the founder, we also aligned that let's have a common roadmap which serves us both. So it was not that we were treating them as a subcontractor, but really more as a partner. And that journey has scaled very well. Today, we've done projects not only in Germany, but we're doing one in the North Sea. We've done it in the Netherlands. We've done it in Vietnam. We're doing one in the US. It's really scaled. I would say it's really scaled 10x. The whole idea has now become part of our embedded solutions and offerings. What we're offering is asset management of the future, where drones and robots are a significant part. And the startup has been one of our key focuses as to what we can do. Of course, we stay hardware agnostic. We do have other startups in that arena, but it's always good to kind of go ahead with one partner, which is reliable, robust, and having a common roadmap with us.
Mm, thanks. That's a great story. I'm wondering more about the process of scaling. When you or your colleagues first met the startup and designed the first pilot, what kind of metrics did you use to decide to move forward and maybe introduce it to other business units? What was the process behind that?
I mean, we always knew that if we really work hard enough and focused enough, we will make the first pilot successful. It was not easy, but we were quite confident that this would happen. So I was actually focusing more on what after that. The pilot is ideally 6 to 9 months duration. Only after that, the challenges start coming as to, what's the next step? How do we scale? When is the next one? It was very interesting because we actually took the stakeholders into the journey as well. So they were really not technology agnostic at all. And they kind of already told us what are the things that is working and what are the things that is not working. So while we were building this, we also wanted to test the service concept of this startup. Can it deliver only in Germany because it's a Swiss startup, or can it deliver somewhere very far away? So we kind of tested the second module in Vietnam, which is a completely different ballgame altogether. Um, The other thing that we started doing was to check the robustness of the business model itself. Is it software as a service? Is it robot as a service? Is it a combination? We were always focused that the benefits should be mutually shared. And by mutually, I not only mean us and the startup, but also our customers, which are usually large utilities across the globe. When we took all of those things into account, a very interesting thing popped up. Within the energy sector, we at Siemens Energy operate in different verticals. We did start this journey with power plants, but then we thought, why don't we look into the transmission sector and see if that can be also scaled there? Similar technology, similar kind of problems. So we tested this with a large customer in the Netherlands, in a substation actually, which is a completely different ballgame, but the technology remained the same. So we found basically a platform where you could scale the technology to different use cases from different parts of the energy sector. I think this was the sweet spot when we realized that you would need much more of these instruments that would go all over the world. It's still a journey. We're not over yet. Of course, there's miles to go, but I think the sweet spot was once we realized that it is scalable from one business, can be transferred to another. This is where the magic happened. Needless to say, at the heart of all of this is people, from both the startup side and the Siemens Energy side, which was always working as a very close partnership concept. It was never really contractual in nature. This really helped because usually large corporates tend to strangle startups. And at the same time, the speed of operations are also always not matching. So we were in a lucky spot in the venture clienting unit that we knew that this is the difference. When we bring the pilot to the big world, there will be these differences. Being aware of that was already helpful. And making our own colleagues aware of these things really helped us scale. And I think that's really the magic behind that. Of course, the technology was a given, and it has to work, and there will still be challenges, but I think the magic was more with the people and the combination of the technology and the people in the roadmap.
Yeah, that's very interesting and also really good tips for listeners on how to move these projects from pilots. And I think the geographic diversity with the scaling in your case is very interesting, especially in multinational corporations looking for technologies that will work in many places. And sometimes startups have limitations on that. Digitization is definitely the hot topic in the energy sector. We just held a energy unfiltered event where we kind of deep dived on energy challenges, and that just kept coming to the top with all of the corporates that attended. I know that's also your topic and focus. Could you share in more detail your digital transformation project and how you're working on stabilizing the EPC project business globally?
Yeah, we are in a lucky position where we're not only designing, but also building these large infrastructure projects, and then also doing the servicing of the same 25, 30 years. So it's really a big responsibility, and this is where the customers really trust us. This entire span needs a lot of human expertise across the globe because our projects are literally across the globe. So what we're trying to do in the transformation process is really looking for those use cases which are not only just improving our efficiencies internally, but also how can we pass that on to our customers so that we can do things faster. We basically are able to kind of iterate much faster. So if I take some examples where AI is concretely really helping us, and we did recently a workshop in Berlin for one of our businesses, we really kind of streamlined the pain points. And we're always telling our colleagues to kind of fall in love with the problem and don't look at the solution at the beginning. And we picked up 4 lighthouses, which are the biggest pain points. And that's been our approach. If you know the pain well enough, we should be able to reverse that, and that becomes a solution. Technology today is able to support any problems that we have. If you look into our venture clienting funnel, we've solved more than 98% of the problems that popped up. There was hardly a case where we did not have a technical solution if the problem is well defined. So that's been our journey. That's how we are transforming one problem at a time, also one business at a time. We are very mindful of the latest technologies. We are also mindful about the noise and the hype around certain technologies and how to filter that out and use that for our concrete use cases. Our customers always trust us for domain knowledge. So this is really a layer on top. So what we always wanted to do was not to have the transformation process as a separate process. We don't want to be seen as the digital guys or a different set of animals altogether, but really integrated into the business. And that's also, you would see within Siemens Energy, that's also what we're trying to do. And that is where we are able to kind of scale it together.
If a startup is listening right now and they think they have the best digital project for Siemens Energy or other robotics or other areas that you're looking for solutions in and wants to work with you, what should they do?
So one of the things I'm always telling our startups, whoever pitches to us, is do not make a generic sales pitch.
Mm.
It usually hurts. It doesn't really help because you will have to understand that people like us are listening to 10 of those pitches every day. If you could kind of cater that to the problem that we have, would be really super cool. This is where, venture clienting, the buffer between the business problems and the startup rollout can help. So reach out to those kind of units, which would kind of, condense the big black problem into something which is manageable and cut down the elephant into small pieces. That's definitely advice number one because that really helps. But what additionally helps is to kind of already understand while you're doing a pilot, then what would be the business model looking like when it's like scaled up? You will see that most often businesses will struggle to put a number behind the thing when we start the entire process. The experts will not be comfortable with that. They would try to stay away from those numbers. But my advice would be that even if the number is wrong, just go for some number because you have to understand that in large corporates, if you're going to make an investment, somebody has to take a decision based on something. This something does not have to be 100% correct, but that really helps the decision makers to allocate budget to move ahead with these projects. And the third advice that I would have is if you look at digital startups in the AI space, I think we always get promised the moon. Do not do that. That doesn't help because the first thing for an AI to even work is if you have clean data, and I can at least speak on my behalf, but I have hardly seen any organization anywhere in the world which has clean and structured data that smoothly flows into an AI model and then AI does the magic. That doesn't happen. So we've made an estimate and we see that nearly 60 to 65% of the effort upstream goes in data cleaning and data structuring, which is a very boring piece of job. Usually by that time, the sponsors of the project lose interest because they don't see any benefits and either kill the project or the pilot. With that knowledge, if you approach AI projects or pilots or technologies, that if you factor in 100 days, the first 60 days will be just data cleaning and you will not see any output. So everybody's looking for some quick and dirty MVPs in the beginning. But I think startups could help us remind the customers about the reality because you will not get clean data. I think there's more and more awareness now in the corporates that we can't really do these things alone, how startups can really help, leverage their R&D. And then ultimately it all boils down to people. We've never really faced problems with technology. Usually the people make or break it.
That's a good last statement. Just to summarize what you said, because I agree with it very much, startups need to know the problem they're solving. This actually came up in another podcast guest as well, who said the same. That was an issue for her as well, which is great to hear it repeated. I coach a lot of startups, and I feel like I always have to repeat myself on this point because they're so focused on the solution. Even when they mature, like, of course, it's advice 101 for a very new startup. But sometimes even with mature startups, you have to remind them and their sales teams, like you have to know the problem you're solving for the customers. You can't just sell the solution outright. Thank you for saying that. I actually really liked your last point about keeping a reality check on the project because startups tend to overpromise and underdeliver. And that is such a bummer for clients when they are expecting certain things. And, startups need to be realistic. Like, look, like 60 days, I have to do data cleaning, and you're not going to get anything from me until I finish that mark. As long as that's communicated and clear, then no one's going to be unhappy. But if you don't say that and mishandle expectations, then that can definitely be a recipe for pilot failure. So thank you for saying that. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, exactly. And to also keep that in mind that large corporates does not necessarily mean that they are experts on those topics. And this is why they're actually looking towards a startup to advise them. So it makes sense that the startups also explain to these companies what is possible, what is not possible. I think that would be a very welcome advice as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Jaydeep. This was great. It was a pleasure to have you as a guest. For our listeners, you can continue to subscribe to Climatic Podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or directly on our Substack. We look forward to sharing more episodes with industry leaders in energy, built environment, and mobility sector. Thank you, Jaydeep.
Thank you very much, Henry. Thanks for having me.